Merle?
Well, good evening, Father God. I just thank you for this time that we can just come together and just really be open, just really worship you and praise you, and really just allow you to speak to us. I know you call us to have a relationship with you on a daily basis, but it's actually encouraging to come together as a fellowship, as a family, to be able to do that and just really have that relationship with you. God. And God, I just pray that you can just bless this time as we're going to open the Word, we're going to learn new things, we're going to be convicted, we're just going to continue to learn what it means to be a disciple, a follower of you, a student of yours. And God, I pray that we can just really be humble before your Word and really appreciate all that you do for us and really just allow you to continue doing great and amazing things in our lives. God, I love you so much. Thank you. Praise in Jesus' name.
Amen. Dear God, Lord, thank you so much for just giving us another day of life, another day to wake up and grow closer to you and grow closer to each other. Lord, I pray that you can speak through the speakers and sharers tonight. God, I pray that we can be open to hearing your encouragement and hearing your spurring on, Lord. I pray that you can help us to really just show up to give and encourage each other and lift each other up, Lord. And thank you for just the bonding and the unity in this room, God. We love you so much. I pray you'll be with us throughout the rest of our week. It's in your son's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. All right, so we'll play the video. Collins will share a little bit about the trip, and then we'll follow that up with some announcements and then the lesson for today. Nice.
We got together with Pastor Chris and Pastor Stephen on Thursday to just go in after the presence of God and try to pen lyric and melody. And after a couple of hours, it just felt like the presence of God just stopped everything. And we wrote a song called The Blessing. And it's straight from Scripture. And it's the heart of the Father over us as His kids. And we're going to sing it this morning if that's okay. And this is a blessing over you and your family and your children. So just receive this morning. Just put your hands out in front of you. Turn your heart to a place of just receiving the blessing of heaven from God Himself over you this morning.
The Lord bless you and keep you. Make His face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn His face toward you. The Lord bless you and keep you. Make His face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn His face toward you and keep you. Amen. 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 The Lord bless you and keep you. Make His face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn His face toward you and give you peace. So we receive, we agree. Amen. Amen. His favor be upon you and 1,000 generations, and your family, and your children, and their children, and their children. May His favor be upon you and 1,000 generations, and your family, your children, and their children, and their children. May His favor be upon you and 1,000 generations, your family, your children, their children, their children. May His favor be upon you and 1,000 generations, your family, your children, their children, their children. May His presence go before you and behind you.
You know, the smile of a child, no matter where they are, is a beautiful thing. And if you're wondering why there's so many pictures of somebody getting their teeth fluoridated, it's because the guy that took all those pictures was the guy that was doing the fluoride. So he had all these amazing pictures of kids around his station. But you know, it's this is 30 years. Hope Worldwide is 30 years old. We celebrated our 30th anniversary last September. And so this kind of 21, 22 years are 30 years. 1.5 million people a year are in direct partnership with Hope, receiving some kind of benefit, and that's mostly people who receive the most benefit is the Hope team. I can tell you that I get a vaccine every time I go somewhere, and I don't mean a vaccine for COVID. I mean a vaccine of service that just vaccinates my heart. And you know, we have a huge goal at Hope Worldwide, and that is that every member of the churches around the world, you know, I think Ryan explained a little bit last week, but every religion has a benevolent organization, Catholic charities, Baptist, You know, you pick up United Methodist Committee on Relief. Hope Worldwide is the International Church of Christ benevolent arm. And we're in 60 plus countries. And our goal that every person in the church is engaged in some kind of respectful service, and every one of those engagements is transforming. Think about that as a goal. If every time we talk to each other, we're engaged, and our engagements are transforming each other's lives, wouldn't that be an amazing thing? If every conversation we had was like, man, I just feel transformed in some positive way about that conversation. So in COVID-19, for over 2 years, we raised about $2.5 million, and your donations and donations from around the world helped feed 50,000 people in 78 countries, 265 churches, and as part of our fellowship. And those 50,000 people were actually about 25,000 people in churches and 25,000 people not in churches. So much of our work around the world is outward facing. What you saw in Honduras that personally changed my own life, I went to Guatemala, 10 years ago as a volunteer. And we were walking as a group down towards a school that Hope ran, and there was a shanty, like some of the ones you saw kind of in there. It was like, okay, what's this? Corrugated tin, walls, barely, connected. I'm like, so it was a little shop in someone's house. And I'm like, how many people live there? And they said, 6 to 8. And I stopped cold in my tracks, and I went, my bathroom, my master bathroom in my house was bigger than that place. And it transformed me, not necessarily as, I didn't go home and sell my bathroom. I didn't go home and do that. What I did is I started giving more. And I started engaging my heart more because it transformed me so much. Hope does things like disaster response, women's empowerment programs. We saw about 500 patients last weekend. We just happened to be blessed to lead this program. There's about 30 volunteers in that one. There's 20 more going to Guatemala on Monday. We do 7 or 8 of these trips, plus, how many of you have ever heard Hope Volunteer Corps or Hope Youth Corps? Those are longer trips of about 10 days to 2 weeks around the world. We're doing 28 of those this year. So sign up for those if you want to go. Anybody been on one? The Hope trip. So, did it change your life?
Yeah.
Yeah. Where'd you go?
New Orleans.
New Orleans, yeah. My daughter went to one. Where'd you go?
Philly.
Philly. Yeah, that's a powerful one.
Yeah.
That substance abuse program in Philly. But there's so many great things going on. And this is, I don't want to take too much time, but my challenge as someone who works with Hope, but also does serving the full ministry of Jesus, is crucial for us to live the entire ministry.
Right.
Not just one aspect of it.
Yeah.
One aspect of ministry can be baptizing people, which, by the way, Matthew 28 is probably one of the most important scriptures in the Bible. Mm-hmm. I personally believe that Matthew 25, though, is how you stay saved. And Matthew 28, get baptized, go baptized, of course. But Matthew 25 is that how can we continue our hearts and challenges in our lives? And that's what Jesus did. He constantly, always served before he preached. What did he do in the Sermon on the Mount? And the feeding of 5,000, he fed people, he healed people. He did those things first. I guess I encourage you. So my challenge is get a vaccine. Go on a trip. You have to get a vaccine to go on the trip anyway. But get a vaccine of service and get a shot in the arm that will boost you. If you're feeling a little bit down, how can you feel down looking at those kids' faces?
Yeah.
Man, I'm like, holy cow. Because kids are kids everywhere. They're smiling, laughing, having a good time.
Yeah.
So just if you have any more questions, we'd love to talk more about it. And love to have you come on a trip. And you don't need to be a doctor. You don't need to speak Spanish. I'm not either one. And neither is Angela. So we highly encourage you to have any questions. We'll be around. Thanks for letting us watch the video, but it'll change and challenge your hearts.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Nice. Well, before we get into the lesson, I want to go through all of our announcements of what we have coming up. This Sunday, if you've been coming out to the mission team meetings, we're actually going to move that to 1 p.m. at my house. And Yes.
So sorry.
And for the mission team meeting, just bring your lunch, whether you're stopping off somewhere on the way or you packed it earlier. Bring your lunch. We will have a mission team meeting at 1, and then we moved it up because this weekend is the Super Bowl, and the Ericksons are hosting a Super Bowl party, and so we will send out more details on what people can bring, but please plan on bringing something. Even if you don't know what to bring, you can think of what a Super Bowl party needs and just bring that. We will send out kind of a list of things we're looking for, things that we want people to sign up for, but other than that, if you don't see the list or find the list or raise your hand for something on the list, just bring something. Don't come empty-handed. Next thing is we have our Arizona Congregational Church Service.
Oh, yeah. There it is.
We got our new website up and running. So we have our Arizona Church Service happening on the 20th. So that's just a week and a half away. And it's going to be at, the screen's way too small, I can't read it. It's at Kiwanis Park at 11 a.m. So it's the same time here, but it's a little bit further of a drive. So please plan on doing that. If you are not going to be able to make it, maybe you have work in the afternoon or something like that, just come talk to me. I'll make sure we either get, see if there's a live stream going to be happening, or if the people who can't make it, maybe all you guys can meet up together. And so that's going to be happening on the 20th at 11. Key things to note, it's outside, so bring a chair, bring a blanket to sit on, and then following service, bring your own lunch, because we're going to have like a massive Arizona picnic and some games and competitions will be had as well. I'm not sure what those are yet, because I'm not in charge of planning that portion of it. But it sounds fun. Hopefully they, Flagstaff, we can represent in a grand way and dominate all the contests.
Look out.
We are very competitive in this church. We will pray for humble hearts beforehand, but we are very competitive. I also do want to mention the marriage dinner, which is happening February 25th. And that's going to be a time where those of us who are married can come together and just have some great conversation, maybe some guided discussion on just, hey, how can we be better spouses? How can we be better in our relationships, in our marriages? And some more details will come out on that, but just mark that down on your calendar. The final thing I want to mention, if you don't already know, is the men's and women's retreats coming up. The women's retreat is with our sister church in Las Vegas, and it's going to be March 25th through the 27th. And then the following weekend, the men are going out for a men's retreat with our sister church in Tucson on April 1st through the 3rd. So mark those down on your calendars. The links will be sent out soon on how we can sign up and get registered for those. But those are going to be great. The women's one is already up. My wife's on top of it. I need to get in contact with the men's one. Working on it. And so just keep that in mind. Put that on your calendar. Those are going to be a great time and a lot of fun. So for our lesson today.
Brian, can I have one more thing?
Yeah.
One more announcement. On behalf of Angie and I, anyone who serves in Kids Kingdom, if you don't mind, we're planning a meeting at 10:15 on Sunday to go over a few points, things children related, please. And thank you for serving. We really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thanks, Brian.
Yeah, of course. All right, so to start off, I wanted to read two quotes. The first one is from Patrick Mahomes, who isn't in the playoffs anymore. But it reads, no one really sees pro athletes behind the scenes. They don't know how hard they work. They don't see how you work on the basics. They couldn't possibly know. You wouldn't think that someone who hits like Alex Rodriguez needs to use a tee every day. But that's how he stayed on top of it. And it's just this idea that Alex Rodriguez, A-Rod, he went and did he continued to do the basic things of hitting with a tee. And then my brother-in-law is into Formula One racing. And so I've got a quote here from Max Verstappen, who is one of the top racers for Red Bull, if you need to know that. And he says, of course you learn from certain moments. And you always get more and more experience. So maybe in the future, you would do some different things. But in general, the basics always stay the same. And I love that because, yes, like we do learn so much from experiences. We gain so much from the life that we live.
Yeah.
But there's something about the basics. There's something about going back to the fundamentals that is so helpful.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to sports, your work, our spiritual lives. And so tonight's lesson is titled FOMO. Who doesn't know what FOMO means? Okay, some people get it. The fear of missing out. Right? It's a thing used often in gamification. And it's the idea of the fear of missing out. Now, who here wants to rat anybody out for having the worst fear of missing out attitude? Can you rat yourself out? Goose, yes. Goose does have a massive FOMO mentality. Who else in here has like a massive mentality where they just hate missing out on something? Yeah, no one? Kind of, yeah. I thought people would call out Isaac right away for the people who had this fear of missing out. But, right, a lot of us have this idea, like we see our friends or hear about our friends going to do something, and we're just like, oh, I want to be there. I wish I could be there. I know for me, like, some of the guys are going snowboarding on Saturday. And I'm like, I wish I could go. I'm in Phoenix to support my wife. I'm doing it. I'm doing what I need to do. I'm doing what I'm wanting to do. But there's a part of me who wishes I could do both. That's what I'm saying. Not that I want to. I'm going skiing with them in March. But I have this fear of missing out. I have this desire to want to be there, to want to be at not just that, but so many things.
Yeah.
I don't want to miss out. Like, why wasn't I invited to this or to that? Why couldn't I be there? I want to be at this. It's probably many of your attitudes as well. Maybe a little less so if you're introverted, but there's still a sense that, I see them doing something, and I kind of wish I was there.
Yeah.
My question for us tonight is, do we ever have that feeling when it comes to spending time with God? Do you ever have the fear of missing out of our times with God? Because we have that feeling when it comes to spending time with our friends. We're spending time doing something we wish we could be doing. But we have that feeling when it comes to a specific event. But does that idea also happen to you when it comes to your relationship with God. Let's flip over to Luke 10. Go, Brian. And let's read in verse 38 through 42. And in the story, it's the story of Mary and Martha. And typically, I feel like when I look at the story, I'm looking at Martha's attitude. And tonight, though, I want to look at Mary's attitude. In verse 38, it says, as Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. She had a sister called Mary, who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to him and asked, Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do all the work by myself? Tell her to help me out. Martha, Martha, the Lord answered, you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed. Indeed, only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken from her. Mary had this mindset of FOMO. She had this mentality of fear of missing out on this time with God, on this time with God's Son, Jesus. And it's not necessarily in a bad way, this fear, but she had this mentality that I want to spend time with Jesus. I want to have this time. And in Psalm chapter 63, we see a very similar mindset. It says in verse 1, you, God, are my God. I earnestly seek you. I thirst for you. My whole being longs for you in a dry and parched land where there is no water. It's just this attitude, this mindset of, I want this. I'm afraid of missing out on time with God. And I think it's something that I know I have to continue to work on. And I'm sure all of us have to continue to grow in our attitudes and our mindsets of spending time with God. Not as an afterthought, not as something that you have to do, but making the shift to it's something that I get to do. Or even making that shift to it's something that I need to do. All of us need to grow accustomed to spending time with God. We talked on Sunday about heaven and the vision of us being in heaven. Now, what are we going to be doing in heaven? Spending time with God. And therefore, if you aren't enjoying it here, if you aren't wanting that here, I hope by the time you get to heaven, that attitude can change. And I hope that we can work on our mindsets now of, hey, I want to spend time with you.
Yeah.
I have a fear of missing that out. I am long from perfect in this area. I don't think any of us can say, we have this locked down. Just like any athlete can't ever say, I've got all of the fundamentals down perfect. It's a process of continually growing and getting better at the fundamentals. It reminds me of just in a relationship. When you start a relationship or you're building a new relationship, there's this attitude of, I just need to spend time with that person. I need to. And your friends are like, dude, you're crazy. Like, you don't need to. Like, calm down a little bit. You've only known her for 2 days. Right? Like, there's just this idea, like, but there's this desire, there's this, I need it. In my relationship with God, I think sometimes that need to spend time with God falls back to, I get to spend time with God. And then maybe some days, or even some weeks at times, it goes, I have to spend time with God. And so the call tonight is to reverse that pattern, to go back in your relationship with God to where it's a new relationship, to where you're no longer, I have to spend time with God. Because if you're in a relationship and that's your attitude with somebody you're dating or married to, it's not healthy.
Yeah.
And so take that step of, I have to spend time with God. And if that's you, move it to, this week I get to spend time with God. If you're already at, I get to spend time with God, take it to, I need to spend time with God.
Yeah.
And work on getting back into a relationship with God where it's not, oh, this is something I have to do. Oh, this gets put on the back burner. Right? A new relationship with God, or a new relationship, you're so over the top at times in the desire to spend time with Him. I know for me that I get to spend time with God can be where I hover most of the time. I want to move to, I need to spend time with Him. I'm longing for it. I have to have it.
Yeah.
That's the attitude I think we all want to have in our relationship with God.
Yeah.
And my final thought here is, I once watched this video of, I believe it was a Navy SEAL talking about his training and boot camp. And he was talking through the concept of, we make excuses so much. We make excuses for anything and everything. And oftentimes we make excuses to get out of doing things.
Yeah.
And he says, I started working on making excuses to do things. And I was just thinking about that as I was writing the conclusion to this lesson of, that's what I need to get back to do. Finding excuses to deepen my relationship with God. Finding excuses to spend more time with God.
Yeah.
Right? That's what we do when we find someone we start liking. Right? You just make up reasons to text them. You make up reasons to initiate, to spend time. You're just finding excuses left and right. That's what I want to call us to do this week with our relationship with God. Let's find an excuse to spend more time with Him. Whether that's, I don't know what your excuse will be, but find something that says, all right, I'm just making it happen. I'm just going full. Whatever that could be. Say, hey, I think we often are, when you find somebody, again, I keep bringing it back to a new relationship. Because that's the mentality I want to have. A relationship, that need, that desire to send that text message. Or it was the desire to send the text message. I'm not finding any new. your relationship. Let's get that straight. But there's just that need, and you're sitting there and you're like, all right, what's a reason I can start a conversation? What's a reason I can find a way to spend time with this person? Let's have the mentality of FOMO when it comes to spending time with God.
Yeah.
Not that we have to do this, but that we want to do this, and we need to have this relationship with Him. And so what we'll do now is we'll break into discussion groups and just let's talk about, maybe this past week, this past month, or month and a half we've been in this new year. How has spending time with God been going for you? Are you in the category of I have to, I get to, I need to,